Hello and welcome to episode 193 of the Podiatry Business Podcast. Today's episode is titled Hiring Your Way Out of Chaos, How Podiatry Clinic Owners Get Their Time Back. So if you've ever thought as an owner of a podiatry clinic that I just need to hire someone and things will calm down, well then this is the episode for you. So the truth is, hiring doesn't fix chaos in your business. What it does instead is it amplifies the systems that you already have in place or the lack thereof. So if you have a business that has some degree of chaos, is being run off adrenaline that you're putting into the system, well then it's just going to amplify that and it's going to make things worse. So if you have a practice and it feels like your practice is frantic right now, if you've got constant interruptions from staff, if you're having to answer questions all day, maybe you're having to finish your notes when after you've seen all your patients, so you're having to hang back. If you feel like the clinic, well, maybe not collapse, but you're worried that it's not going to be sustainable or run properly when you're not there the second you step away, then a new team member isn't magically going to solve your business. What will solve it is hiring with the right system. So the reason I'm doing this podcast today is because I was recently talking to a podiatry clinic owner based in the UK who basically has a business that they're just completely chock-a-block and they feel stretched. They feel like an elastic band, that they're having to answer all the questions, they're having to do everything that in the business, and they think that if they just take on another staff member, in this case another podiatrist, that will solve everything. Now, that is needed. They do need some more staff, but if we just take on a staff member without actually fixing their system as well, we'll end up with absolute chaos and it will just make things worse. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to walk you through a fairly simple framework to help you hire your way out of that chaos without you basically becoming the bottleneck or everything having to run through you. So the real problem I see is what I call the chaos loop. So let's just explain what's happening in most clinics. And this happened in my clinic for a long time. That's how I know it so intimately. So you as the owner, you are overloaded. So you feel that hiring quickly will solve it. So you do so. You hire quickly because you think this will give you relief and it will solve things. But because you've no proper onboarding, because you're already overloaded, what happens is a staff member comes in and mistakes start to happen, and then what has to happen is you have to jump back in to try and fix them, and then you start thinking, well, you know what, maybe it's just faster if I just do it myself rather than training these people or showing them what to do, and you become more overloaded than you were previously, and that's what I call the chaos loop. So if you've been through it once, you'll know how dangerous it can be, because it can result in burnout for you personally. You can start to almost feel resentful of your business, and you start to maybe think that hiring just doesn't work, and then you want to keep the business small because you can't deal with the increased stress or hassle that comes with it. And really, hiring isn't the problem, it's the lack of structure around what you're doing that is the problem. What I've seen clinic owners stop hiring and stay smaller than they could be, and as a result they stay tied to the clinic, and in time when it comes time to exit, they're not able to do so because the business is just basically them. It is about them. Now that's cool if you want to have a small business, if you don't want to have clinical staff because you can't deal with the chaos that comes with it because you haven't set things up. That's cool, that's no problem. But what you do have to understand is when it does come time for you to step away partly or even fully, you're going to find it much more difficult than you would be if you have a true business that can run whether you're there or not, or significantly without you. So the goal in this episode that I want for you is, it's pretty simple. Now you stop hiring just to relieve the pressure. And instead what you do is you start hiring for outcomes with clear roles, with clear onboarding and a rhythm that keeps that clinic stable. So we want to have a mindset shift where you're hiring for outcomes, not just tasks. And also what's happening is hiring is being triggered by numbers, not just by how you feel. So what we do with my clients, my coaching clients, is there's two main numbers when it comes to hiring. One is we have to have a utilization number, so it could be either a clinician utilization number or it could be a room utilization number. It's not that important at this point, but a number that when we hit that number, and it's different for every clinic depending on various factors, we know it's time to take on another staff member. I'm talking about clinical staff member here. So we measure that, and it's done as automatically as we can possibly make it using software systems that we would give our clients. And then the second thing then is we need to know our money numbers. So we need to know our P&L, our turnover, and so on, to make sure that we can afford it, that it makes sense to do so, that we're not just hiring someone and actually finding we're not making any more money. What is the point in that? That we're taking on someone that's actually going to help to improve the profitability of the business and make you as the owner, make your life better. Because let's be honest, running a business is really hard, okay? And you got to be rewarded. Now, what most owners do is to hire like this, okay? They go, I need someone who's going to answer the phones, who's going to do the admin, who's going to maybe chase the invoices, who's going to do some nail surgery, who's going to do some routine chiropody, and so on. Now, what that is not as a role, that is just a pile of tasks. Instead, what we want to do is we want to sit back and pause, and we want to say, instead what I want to do is I want to hire for an outcome. So an outcome sounds like, I want to make sure 100% of phone calls are answered during work hours. So that's an outcome, and then we have a role that will come for that. I want to make sure that all of my nail surgery patients are booked in and treated within 2 weeks. I want to make sure that the diary is confirmed 48 hours in advance, and that we have a 2% DNA and we have a less than 10% cancellation schedule, etc., etc. You get the gist of what I'm trying to do. So when you hire for an outcome, you can measure success of the role. You can measure, are you achieving your outcome? You can train properly because you know what it is you're trying to train for, and you can stop being, you personally can stop being the quality control department. You can essentially stop a situation where, the current situation you probably have, where everything has to run through you to make sure that nothing falls apart. Now, there's probably 3 roles that will buy you as the owner of the business, as the lead clinician, back time fastest. Now, it depends on the size of your clinic, which one of these you'll do first. But these are the roles that typically what we do. Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about is the front desk, okay, or the admin person. So their outcome is to protect your diary. So this person is going to own the front of house machine. They're going to handle all your incoming calls. They're going to handle your messages. They're going to handle booking. They're going to handle rescheduling, confirmations, payments, basic admin. So they're not there to help. They're there to own the front of house. So if you speak to my front desk team and you ask them, why are you here? They will say, we're here to make sure the diary is full. That is it. Everything else comes secondary to that. So the outcome I want is to make sure that my clinicians' diaries are full. So they got to manage the diary, keep the cancellations down, and so on and so forth. And if you can have someone handle that, and I don't have to really go near it other than maybe an occasional conversation at this point, it means that I don't have to be dealing with diary management. And it's the same for you. If you can pass this rollout and have that outcome in place, it will give you back a significant amount of time. The second one is, I suppose you call it a clinic director light. Now, I am not suggesting, unless you have a significantly large clinic, that you have a full-time clinic director. It's one of the biggest mistakes that I see clinic owners make, is they get somebody in and they pay them a full-time wage, and all they do is to do clinic director or practice manager, whatever you want to call it. It is a waste of time. It is a waste of money. Instead, what I suggest is, if you have systems, you can have a current staff member step up and do this or parts of this role, or you can split the role into a clinical part and a non-clinical part. But you really don't need a full-time practice manager. But what you do need is, you do need to have this as an outcome, and then you can split it. So what this does is it protects your brain, so everything isn't having to run through you, because a manager's job is to devise systems or SOPs and to make sure that they're actually being implemented. That's it. Okay? So the role is to handle SOPs and checklists. So you have a clinical version and you have an admin version. That's why I'm saying you might have to split this between two people that you already have working for you. Staff coordination, again, clinical, admin, so on. Maybe they'll have to look after stock and supplies, like your consumables, and so on. They want to be dealing with issues before they become emergencies, so they're not running over to you. One of the big ones I would find in this is clinical mentorship. So when a more junior staff member or even a senior staff member has a question or a query or not too sure what to do with a clinical case, that they have someone they can go to, that not all having to run through you, and CPD training. So in my clinic, what we do is when a new staff member comes on, they get designated a mentor, one-on-one. That is their mentor to bring them from where they are to where we want them to be. And we also have another staff member who does CPD. So we close our clinic for 2 hours every single week, and we do paid CPD training for all of the staff, all the clinical staff, and somebody runs that in the clinic. They step up for that 2 hours and they run that throughout the year, 50 weeks of the year that we're open. I don't have to do that. I don't run that. I haven't done so, I'd say, for about 4 or 5 years. So if you're the person that everyone goes to for decisions, this is the role, either one person or more likely split, that is your exit route from having to answer all of these questions. Okay? Third one is a staff podiatrist. Now, not an associate, but a staff podiatrist. And I've talked about the difference between associate and paid staff. But basically someone who's going to treat some or all of the patients that you're currently doing. So it allows you to cut your clinical hours. And the reason for this is not that it's a bad thing to treat patients. I understand a lot of people listening to this and watching this on YouTube, they love treating patients, and that's cool. But if you treat patients all of the time, a full week, you're just not going to be able to run your business. So what you need to be able to do is to have periods, blocks of time that you can step away and run the business as opposed to working in the business. So what this staff podiatrist will do is their outcome is to treat patients and to protect revenue. So you're still generating that revenue even though you're not the one treating patients. So this is a clinician who takes the patient load off of your plate without dropping standards, so that your patients get consistently high quality care, that follow-up and treatment plans are properly executed, that your capacity increases without you having to add more hours, so you have more billable hours, because what you're doing is you're running a business that is dependent on the amount of billable hours that you can treat patients. And that revenue isn't dependent on you being there all of the time or being in every room. So these are the 3 roles that will give you back that time. Again, it depends on where you are in your business, which one of these we tend to help you implement first. But the core system is that you want to have a role clarity, and then you want to have decision rights that person has. So what's the outcome? What's the role that they're going to have to do? And what's the decisions that they're allowed to make, so their decision rights. So the simplest way you could do this is to have basically like a 1-page scorecard, or role scorecard. And it's got kind of 4 parts to it. So the first part is what is the purpose of the role, or what is the outcome? And it should be just 1 sentence or 1 small paragraph. Step 2 is what is the number of outcomes, small number of outcomes that you're going to measure. They've got to be something that you can measure, okay, that is related to the outcome. Number 3 is the KPIs. What are the numbers you're going to review, okay, every single week? And obviously someone's got to fill those in. It's not going to be you, because you have to just review it. And then what is their decision rights? What can they decide without you, okay? And ideally what you want to do is get that bigger as they go along, so that they're not having to come to you and you're not having to make those decisions. And you've got to get used to letting go of that, and that it's okay for them to make mistakes as long as it's not repeated mistakes. Giving decision rights is where you as the owner will get your life back and buy back time. Because if every single small decision comes to you, refunds, what do I do about this cancellation, this patient wants a discount, you're still going to be the bottleneck and your business will not grow and you are going to become overwhelmed. So what you do is you define the rules. Like, look, you can offer up to X in goodwill without asking me. If a patient needs this, you can do that, and so on and so forth. If only come to me in these situations, you can escalate to me. Other than that, I trust you to make the decision. What you want to make sure is that you have SOPs or systems that will deal with 80%. So the 80-20 rule is basically, there's probably about 20% of decisions that you're having to repeatedly help and ask for. And what you want to do is you want to make sure your onboarding has something that allows these people, or allows these decisions and systems to be seen quite easily without having to come to you. And the mistake that I see with onboarding is one of two things. One is there is no onboarding. It's just a chat, off we go. Or it is a massive manual that nobody is ever going to read. So what you want is you want to have a middle ground, and you want to have an onboarding stack. Now I'm going to talk about 6 SOP onboarding stacks. And these are the ones that I think are probably going to be the biggest and take up most of your time. So the first one will be, how do you handle new patient inquiries? What actually do you need to say? How do you book them in? What kind of appointment do you give the patient? You want to have one for booking rules and diary management, so that you're not having to constantly manage the diary on a day-to-day basis. You want to have an SOP or a system for confirmations and no-show prevention. So what do you do when people don't show up for confirmations, etc., etc.? You definitely want to have one for payments, invoices, refunds, and for recording of all of these things. So how do you do it? So they're not having to constantly come to you and say, oh, this person wants a refund, what should I do? Or this person didn't pay their bill, what should I do? There should be a system for that you don't have to continually answer. And someone is in charge of it. In this case, it's going to be the admin team. Clinical case management and decisions. I talked about this a bit earlier on, like the mentorship. So essentially, what do I do with this patient here? How do I make the decision? What plan do I put them into, etc., etc.? And then complaints and escalations. This is the one that everybody will try to push towards you as the owner, and this is the one that you don't want to be dealing with. So you want to have SOPs or systems for this, and you want to have decision rights that person is allowed to make when it comes to these. And they got to be nice and simple, that not big documents, 1-page doc will do fine, and that everybody knows what they are. So the goal isn't to have perfection. The goal is to just get things moving. Okay? Your goal really is that your team stops needing to ask you the same question repeatedly. Okay? If they have to ask you the same question repeatedly, you haven't developed a system enough, and you haven't given them the wherewithal to have confidence that they can go and do so, and that you have their back. Because the alternative is you just make every decision. If you're not going to trust them, you're going to have to make any decision. Now, what you don't want to do at the same time is you don't want it to be a situation where they feel they can't come to you. So it's a fine line, and as you give them trust and you give them the systems, you'll find that they won't come back to you. So how I do this is I tell my staff that they can ring me pretty much all of the time. Don't ring me between midnight and 6 a.m. And other than that, they can ring me if they have a problem, but they never ring me, because what happens is when they do, I will ask them, what do you think we should do? I'll ask them for 2 options, and then I'll ask them which one they think I should pick, and then I go with that. And the reason is because they know that if they're going to have to come to me, they're going to have to come with the decision, with the suggestion and the decision, so therefore they can bypass that and they can go ahead because he trusts us. So you do need to have a rhythm when you're starting this, okay? And there's a few ones that you can do, but I'm going to give you a nice simple one. So maybe a 10-minute huddle every single day with your clinical team, with your admin team, whatever. What's happening today, what we expect, or any risks, anything we need to look out for. In my clinic, how we do this is we at 10 o'clock every day, we have a coffee break. It's paid coffee break. Our staff sit down for half an hour together, and we just have a chat about anything. And if there's anything they have that's coming later on, or they want to talk about over the next 24 hours, they can bring it up there. We have a second thing I would suggest is maybe like a weekly scorecard meeting. So you might review your KPIs, you might fix whatever bottlenecks you see, and so on. I do this on a Monday morning. I go in and I look at the scorecards in my clinic, and I will only bring them up with the staff if I feel that there's something I need to bring up. I will not bring them up or get them involved unless that is the case. And when you bring this initially, you'll find that you're having to bring a lot of things up, and then gradually it becomes less and less and less. And I find now with a clinic, with 8 clinicians working in it, I'd have to bring up maybe 4 things in a week. Maybe you're going to do a monthly version, a monthly training where you're looking at one large skill, one large SOP, and seeing as a team, what can you improve, what can you change. They're giving you feedback, you're giving them feedback, and you're working through the decision rights so that they know what they can't do. So the rule you want to really have is that you're not getting overloaded with drive-by questions, that you're not getting the dreaded, can I ask you a quick question? Now, you don't want to discourage it, but you want to frame it in a way that when they do so, you're giving them the permission, the opportunity to actually come and have an answer as well. And that if they make a mistake, that you're okay with that as long as that mistake's not repeated over and over. So instead of having open office hours, what you might decide to do is you have maybe 2 or 3 set windows per week. And maybe when your staff come to you, they have to have a list. You're going to answer this maybe only once, and that you're going to tell them to turn it into a system or an SOP and send it back to you. Because really what we're trying to do here is we're trying to build a machine that doesn't require you to be present for every single thing, for every single part, for every single decision. And that when we take on a hire, they know what their outcome is, they know what their role is, and they know what they should be doing and what systems to do to make that outcome a success, and that you're able to measure it, and therefore it's not all having to run through you. So if today's episode hits home, if it sounds like it's something you need to implement into your clinic, if you think that maybe you're hiring to just get relief of the pressure and all it's doing is making things worse, and you prefer instead to hire to build a practice that runs without you or can significantly reduce the stress or pressure on you while making you, giving you a financial freedom, well, that's what we do here in More Practice Profits, and we would be delighted to help you do so. So if you want help mapping out this exact roles and systems for your business, then your next step then is to go to morepracticeprofits.com and book a quick 10-minute triage call. It's a phone call. We look at where you are. We look at where your time is leaking. What can we systemize first? And we will figure out with you where we can help you buy back your time and build a better business and a better financial future. So until next time, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.